We have teams on bye this week. We have injured running backs. We have guys coming back. This rankings list looks completely different than last week outside of the very top, right? We still have CMC 1. I will say it's going to be the first challenge we've actually had with Christian McCaffrey in this 49ers offense where they are going up against Dallas. Maybe you say, oh, okay, CMC's not going to have 4 touchdowns this week. Maybe he only has 1. I mean, nonetheless, obviously, this is the locked and loaded RB1 every single week, the most valuable player in fantasy. Second tier, we will have Bijan Robinson officially leading off. Bijan Robinson in a game last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars where Desmond Ridder was possibly the worst quarterback outside of Joe Burrow of last week. You had a whopping 14 carries for 105 rushing yards. Even though this is a horrendous offense, he's still going out there. He's still getting the volume. He had 5 receptions for 32 receiving yards as well. The man has 19 receptions so far this season. He's right there at the very top for the Atlanta Falcons in both receiving and rushing. Just based off his volume, he's going to be a must-start guy. It's a pretty good matchup against Houston as well. Now, our next guy will be Tony Pollard. With Tony Pollard, really tough spot going up against the 49ers. Now, this is by far and away the game of the week, right? You have Dallas, you have the 49ers. You have the best 2 defenses in the NFL playing each other on Sunday night. With Pollard, we really didn't get to see a ton of them last week, but that's because they won 38-3. Not expecting that to be the score against San Fran. Now, we're actually going to be aggressive in how we rank Saquon Barkley here. Now, I'm recording this right at the beginning of the Jets Monday night game. Now, if we see a massive like Daniel Jones injury or something, if something crazy happens, I will update you with the live stream later tomorrow night. But Barkley got in 3 limited practices in week 4. I mean, I think that this is probably a running back we can be safe saying he's coming back in week 5. Now, maybe I just drafted too much Saquon Barkley. Maybe this is hopium, and I'm really hoping that he is going to come back. Now, Josh Jacobs, another running back we drafted a ton of. If you are looking at Jacobs here, what is so interesting is this is a running back right now that has more receiving yards than rushing yards. The man has 173 receiving yards to 166 rushing. Now, I think we can assume that you have Jimmy Garoppolo back in this offense. Keep in mind, with Jimmy G, this is a quarterback that was just dealing with the concussion. So, I mean, it's not like this is going to be some 8-week-long injury. No, Jimmy G will most likely be back this week. You're 2-point dogs in this game, so at least they should be a little bit competitive. Now, DeAndre Swift will be our next running back. Very hard not to have Swift here. DeAndre Swift currently is top 3 in the NFL in total rushing yards. Now, with Swift, a running back that is getting some involvement as a receiver, obviously not as much as what we saw in Detroit. I mean, you go back and remember what you had with the Detroit Lions, just utilizing DeAndre Swift kind of in that Jahmyr Gibbs role. We're never trusting him on first and second down, just throwing him out there and getting him 5-6 targets a game. Well, no, right now the man has 364 rushing yards. I'll see if I can pull up this stat for y'all to show it on the screen, but I believe DeAndre Swift is also at the very top of the NFL in yards before contact, which obviously goes to show how good this Philadelphia Eagles offensive line is. Now, Kyren Williams will be our next running back in this same game going up against Philly. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to move Kyren Williams down just a bit, given how bad this overall matchup is. We'll go Derrick Henry instead. With Henry going up against Indianapolis, your 1.5 dog should be competitive. What we have seen so far with Derrick Henry this season is if you get blown out, Derrick Henry will not be good. If they either win the game or play in a close contest, Derrick Henry is going to be a great option in fantasy. I am excited about Anthony Richardson. I don't think he's about to go out there and blow out the Tennessee Titans, though. And then we will go Kyren Williams directly after this. With Kyren Williams, the man has 6 touchdowns this season. The man is a true bell cow running back. I understand, yes, he didn't see literally 100% of the snaps this past week as we saw in weeks 2 and 3, but he had 25 carries. I mean, you give a running back 25 carries, the man's going to need some time standing out there on the sidelines and catching his breath. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we will be going with Travis Etienne, who's had the consistent volume. I mean, 20 carries this past week. 19, 12, 18 the weeks before. He has 14 receptions for 96 receiving yards as well. So Etienne continues to be a running back that is getting pretty much every single touch in this backfield. I think Etienne's a talented back, and I was super excited about him in fantasy. The one thing that's been limiting him a bit so far has just been the fact that this Jacksonville Jaguars offense has been very bad. Hopefully, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is able to turn the corner. Hopefully, all of a sudden, we can get a little more excited about the Jags going forward. Now, David Montgomery will be our next running back. Now, with Montgomery, this is a running back that we are less excited about in a full PPR format. Is really not getting involved as a receiver. He has 3 targets so far this season, but it doesn't matter because if the Detroit Lions go out there and win the game, David Montgomery is pretty much a lock to have over 20 carries. I mean, hell, we've even seen this for the week that they lost against Seattle. Keep in mind, David Montgomery left early this game, but was on pace for that volume. And this is a game against the Carolina Panthers where Detroit's favored by 9 points. So Detroit's favored by 9. I mean, they are going to be able to run the ball consistently in the second half. Now, Aaron Jones will be our next running back at 11. Aaron Jones, horrendous against Detroit. You look at the overall snap data. I mean, hell, you look at what the coaching staff was saying after the game as well. Clearly, Aaron Jones and Christian Watson were just on a snap count. Now, Aaron Jones should be 100% going into this week and just did get a 10-day rest period. Our next running back, I have no idea how to rank. Jonathan Taylor will be back at practice on Wednesday. I do not know if Jonathan Taylor or Zach Moss will be the starting running back for the Indianapolis Colts this next week. I am going to rank them here as a low-end RB1, high-end RB2, whoever the Indianapolis Colts starting running back is. I am hoping it's Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, no idea who it's going to be at this point. There's always the outside chance that Taylor gets traded. There's the chance that he doesn't play week 5, yada, yada, yada. It is a tough matchup going up against Tennessee regardless. And then James Cook will be our next running back at 13. A little bit concerned about the usage that we had with James Cook. I mean, you saw him split with both Latavius and Damien Harris. And we had a lot of people in the comment section going, oh, Mason, don't worry about James Cook. It was just a blowout. That's why they blew out the Commanders, the Raiders, and James Cook still had a larger workload in those games than what he saw this past week. So really hoping we get a bounce back with the overall usage that we have with James Cook. Hopefully we see a little bit less Damien Harris. What is very encouraging is James Cook actually did get the goal line role this week, which was the first time this season. Now, Devon Etienne will be our next running back. And with Devon Etienne, I apologize, this is an RB that has been the most efficient player in the NFL. 11.4 yards per carry. 6 total touchdowns in essentially 2 games. Let me go through and do some simple math here, but seeing the fact that he has had 6 touchdowns with 35 total touches, that means he is averaging a touchdown pretty much 1 out of every 6 touches right now in Miami. Miami is a great offense right now that they are going to actually be favored by 9.5 points against the Giants. There's a lot of touchdown upside. I am interested to see what we get with Jeff Wilson Jr. If Jeff Wilson Jr. does not play, you can even rank Devon Etienne higher than this. Now, James Conner, our next back, 3-point dogs against Cincinnati. I mean, you're actually probably going to see Arizona stay in this game. They've actually been scoring as of late, right? I mean, they've been scoring all season. Week 1, 16 points. Week 2, 28 points. Week 3, 28 points. Week 4 against San Francisco, 16 points as well. So they definitely have been bad, but they've been at least better than you were expecting. What we really need to see here is the Arizona Cardinals just be able to effectively move the ball down the field as they already have been because James Conner is already getting the workload. Now, Joe Mixon will be the next running back with Mixon. I do not believe in Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow this past week looked like the worst quarterback on the field, like in all of the NFL. Maybe make the argument actually it was the backup in Cleveland. Okay, he looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. You're only favored by 3 points going up against the Arizona Cardinals. And with Joe Mixon, you really haven't seen that much involvement as a receiver. So it's really tough. I mean, also, not only do you have the Burrow injury, but you have no Higgins in this offense. So you should see fewer first downs, fewer drives to the red zone. Now, Alvin Kamara will be our next running back at 17. Full PPR format, obviously you're excited about Kamara. Non-PPR league, he's not him. A non-PPR format, you're not going to be there. You're really hoping that Derek Carr is 100% healthy, but really that's going to be something that we have to go through and we have to continue to monitor throughout the rest of the week. So just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Of course, I will continuously be giving you updates every single night on our live streams. And going over to the Thursday night game, we have a running back here. And real quick side note, of course, if If y'all haven't already, make sure you go check out the pick'ems that you have for the Thursday night games on Underdog Fantasy. You're actually going to get a Justin Fields special pick'em, more than less than half the total yard going up against the Washington Commanders. That's if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog. And also, if you were to use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, you're going to get our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers and a 100% deposit match up to $500. You can find that link in both the comment section as well as the description of this video. But Brian Robinson in this game is a running back that I have no hesitation starting. Right now, you actually have the Chicago Bears. I thought they were going to be dogs in this game. I thought it was going to be close, though. No, Chicago is a 7-point dog going up against Washington here. Vegas is telling us that Chicago was just, lucky, I guess, to go up against the worst defense in the NFL last week and keep it close with the Denver Broncos. It looks like you should have Washington be able to run the ball in the second half. Now, Isaiah Pacheco will be our next RB. With Pacheco, he is trending 100% in the right direction, right? He is getting more and more and more in this backfield, where Clyde Edwards-Helaire is seeing the field less and less and less. If this trend continues, I'll be happy to move Isaiah Pacheco even higher in these rankings. I just want some more data on what this split's going to be, because it really can't be a 3-man RB by committee. And our next guy, Alexander Madison, is a running back that had a very nice workload at the beginning of the season and still is the starting running back right now for Minnesota. In Cam Akers' first game in, though, Akers did see about 30% of the snaps and 30% of the touches. And overall, I'm just not a big enough believer in the talent profile of Alexander Madison to assume that if he's in a committee, that he's going to be a running back that we need to start every single week. And also, this matchup against KC is one that you're most likely going to see Minnesota have to air the ball out. Now, Raheem Mostert will be our next running back at 21. If Jeff Wilson Jr. is not playing week 5, at the time of this recording, we don't know. He will be at the very top of this tier, and possibly he'll move a tier above as well. I am making these rankings with the concern and with the overall worry that Jeff Wilson Jr. may be active week 5, and you may see a pseudo 3-man running back by committee between these guys in Miami. But keep in mind, this Miami backfield has been by far and away the most valuable backfield in fantasy football, which I would have never guessed. Now, going down to our next tier, we are going to have Ramondre Stevenson at 22. I thought Ramondre was going to be a fine option in a PPR format, seeing like a similar type to Alvin Kamara, where you're just racking up a ton of cheap receptions. But no, if you are looking at Ramondre Stevenson, he only has 12 receptions this season, and it's not getting it done if you have 2.7 yards per carry, where this is arguably one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I think they're only ahead of Cincinnati in overall points scored this year. Week 1, they dropped 20. Week 2, they dropped 17. Week 3, 15. Week 4, 3. Even if you are going to get the 3 to 4 receptions out of the backfield from Ramondre Stevenson here, very hard to rely on him, especially in a matchup going up against New Orleans. Now, our next running back will be Kahlil Herbert. Herbert looks like a must-start running back at this point. He's taking over. Ramondre Stevenson is right there in front of him. I kind of want to move Herbert ahead. But with Kahlil Herbert, Roschon Johnson's kind of fading into the background, which I thought was going to be the exact opposite. I thought Roschon was going to get better as the year progressed. But this week, they showed that Kahlil Herbert, no, he is the guy. He had 18 rush attempts, 103 rushing yards. But to be fair, this is a running back that actually is a 7-point dog on Thursday night. So I think that you're probably going to see the Chicago Bears not be able to run the ball as effectively as they did this past week. And I'm actually going to move Kahlil Herbert behind Damen Pierce, because if you're looking at Pierce, this is a running back that had 24 carries this past week. And you know what? I need to move him ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. This is an offense that actually looks pretty damn good with CJ Stroud as well. I never expected CJ Stroud to be this good. And they're only 1.5-point dogs against the Atlanta Falcons, which your usual concern that you have with this Houston Texans rushing game, at least, is that they're going to be behind, where you're going to see garbage time like weeks 1 and 2, where CJ Stroud just has to air it out. I will say, though, Damen Pierce has been one of the least efficient running backs in the NFL this season as well, where right now he's currently sitting with a whopping 2.8 yards per carry. Now, our next running back will be Miles Sanders. With Miles Sanders, a couple things working against him. 1, still dealing with the groin injury. 2, in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And 3, is a 9-point dog against the Detroit Lions. You assume that you may actually get a little more Chuba Hubbard, similar to what we saw this past week. What we have seen so far has been that they want to use Chuba Hubbard more so on third downs, use him in the 2-minute drill, use Miles Sanders more as the first and second down bruiser, which is great, right? If you're in an offense that's going to be able to effectively move the ball down the field, which is great if you're in a spot where you'll have some touchdown upside. But ultimately, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. They've scored 10, 17, 27, and 13 points so far this season. Now, Breece Hall will be our next RB. And I know we had a lot of people coming out saying, oh, Mason, come on. I mean, the Jets are great. Look, Zach Wilson's turning it around. No, I know Zach Wilson was better against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's still one of the worst offenses in the NFL. You actually have the New York Jets as 2-point dogs going up against Denver. Obviously, it is a phenomenal matchup against the Denver Broncos. Great matchup where this team will let up rushing yards to literally anybody. So, you know what? We will actually move him to the tier above. I know that we are changing this around a bit here, but I mean, maybe we can talk ourselves into the matchup being there. Ultimately, this is a running back that did see 6 carries in this game. Now, Gus Edwards will be our next RB. With Edwards, they're 4.5-point favorites against Pittsburgh, who obviously has a plethora of injuries at the moment. But with Edwards, this is a running back that is splitting the backfield with Justice Hill, is splitting the backfield with Melvin Gordon, and ultimately, he has no role as a receiver. So while he does have some touches, still at the same time, this is a player that's, at least in a PPR format, the ceiling is so damn low where you actually have Lamar Jackson taking rushing touchdowns, and he doesn't get anything in the receiving game. So we're actually going to lower him here. Jalil McKinnon will be our next player. 2-point favorite over the Jets. Obviously, we are expecting that you have no Javonte Williams in this game. If Javonte Williams does play, the slide in Javonte Williams actually to probably the tier above this. I do think that this is going to be a split between Samaje Perine and Jalil, but ultimately, he looked like the better running back if you're looking at a per-touch perspective, right? I mean, he looked more dynamic. He looked more electric. And then Jahmyr Gibbs will be our running back at RB28. I really hope we can move Jahmyr Gibbs higher than this. And if I'm 3-0, if I'm 2-1, and I'm playing in a full PPR format, I think Gibbs may actually be someone that's intriguing to go out there and see if we can target, just given the fact that he plays behind an elite offensive line. This is someone that is a great receiver, and he should expand his role as the season goes on. But if you're a 9-point favorite against Carolina, this is most likely going to be a David Montgomery game. Like where you would want Jahmyr Gibbs is if they're going up against Miami, right? Where it's going to be a shootout and you're going to see Gibbs way more in the field in obvious passing down scenarios. Now we'll go Samaje Perine at 30. With Perine, it is what it is. I guess he probably projects, actually probably to see more touches overall in this backfield. Just looks so damn bad. I mean, I don't know why anybody can be excited about Perine. And Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren will be all the way down here at the bottom end of this list. They are splitting the backfield legitimately 50-50. If you look at the snaps, it's right down the middle. And at the same time, you may have no Kenny Pickett this week. Now, if Kenny Pickett does play, both these running backs move up. But I want to prepare as if Pickett's not going to be playing. Freiermuth's not going to be playing. Deontay Johnson's not going to be playing. I think that they are going to most likely easily lose this game against the Baltimore Ravens, where I kind of want to rank every Pittsburgh Steeler under the assumption that if Trubisky is the starting quarterback, that none of them are startable. And then Tyler Algier will be our next one. I mean, with Algier, no role as a receiver. Obviously, a premium man get back if something were to occur to Bijan Robinson, but you can start him and send up a prayer that somehow he has a touchdown against the Houston Texans here. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the description and in the comment section. That link will get you a Justin Fields special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard going up against Washington on Thursday night. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers and a 100% deposit match up to $500 with promo code FLOCK. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much. Really do appreciate you and really hope that we get to see you out with the live stream later.